time, it's not just Bershus, the Rosh Yeshiva Shlita, but the Pekudas, the Rosh Yeshiva. The Yeshiva appointed me and asked me, since he couldn't be here, to introduce our very choshev guest speaker who will, Be'ez Hashem, inspire us to avoid the Shabbos and the Chag and the Ben Azmanim. And Mr. the Rosh Yeshiva, also, if the Yeshiva was standing here, he would express that Rabbi Avrohom Dov Kahn Shlita, who's a major Talmud Chacham in his own right, is a Talmud Muvak of Rabbi Yosef Bersel of Eivshik Zechron Levracha, a Talmud, very close Talmud of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein Zechron Levracha, and I could tell you Sipurim from our younger years of the bittul that Rabbi Kahn had to Rabbi Moshe. Today, he's responsible for I don't know how many Yiddish mishpachos that would not have been without him and his organization, Center for Return, which is based in Kew Gardens, but spread not only in New York State, but many Yiddish mishpachos that wouldn't have existed. But Mustanda, the biggest praise that you can give a Yid is that he learns Torah b'ahava and b'hasmoda. So, as a first cousin, I'll just share with you one thing which some of you heard from me in Avad in the past. This is the man who it was about. That probably 2.5 decades ago, for a brief time, Rav Kahn moved to the neighborhood where we lived, to Foster in East 8th, right, for a couple of years. So I was so excited when I heard that discussion of a cousin of mine is moving to the neighborhood. I called up, I said, Mazel Tov, it's so wonderful. We'll be able to visit. To which Rabbi Avrohom responded, visit? That's for women. We'll be able to learn together if we live near each other. That, I think, is the biggest compliment that I could say, and chizuk, as we did very chizuk from Rabbi Avrohom Kahn. Shekayach.
Does everyone hear me? Because I think my voice will project better without the mic. I'm just getting started when we get into the learning, so it'll be louder. The divrei chizuk which I have will come from the divrei Chazal, which I'm going to speak about. But really, it's going to come from the divrei Chazal from the central point of Mitzvahs Magid, which we would like to understand. There's a very difficult Rambam. And as my Rebbe used to say every single time in every shiur, about every single Rambam that he heard from his grandfather, he heard from Reb Chaim, his father, in the name of Reb Chaim, this is the most difficult Rambam in all of Yad Chazakah. So every Rambam was the most difficult Rambam in all of Yad Chazakah. But the central Rambam about Magid is Mitzvahs Aseh Perek Zayin Aloch Aleph, Mitzvahs Aseh Shel Torah, L'saper b'nisim v'niflos shenasu lavoseinu b'mitzrayim b'leil chamisha oso b'nisan shenemar, and he brings a pasuk. I'll tell you the pasuk in a second. So normally, let's read this Rambam again. Mitzvahs Aseh Shel Torah L'saper. It is a positive commandment, Midoraisa, to tell over the Nisim and the flows, Shenasu Lavoseinu b'Mitzrayim, B'leil Chamisha Oso b'Nisan. So the simple pshat is that on the 15th, if we just read these words, everyone in this room would say that on the 15th night of Nisan, Leil Seder, you should tell over the nisim and the flows that happened to Avoseinu b'Mitzrayim. But this is not the pshat. This is not the pshat in the Rambam. Now I'll prove it to you. Because the Rambam, first of all, brings a pasuk which no one else brings. What's the proof that you tell over nisim and the flows on Leil Chamisha Asa b'Nisan? Shenema zochos hayom hazeh asher yisasem Mitzrayim. And then he brings it further. Kemo shenema zochos yom HaShabbos. So what's his proof that you say over the story of the Exodus? Because it says Shenema zocha es hayom hazeh asher yitzosem Mitzrayim. Look at Rashi on Chumash, on this pasuk. Rashi says this is mitzvah zechira, which is chayav every single day. This is not the mitzvah of Leil Seder. Look at Rashi on this pasuk. Rashi says this is the mitzvah zechira shebechol yom. Zochas hayom hazeh asher yitzosem Mitzrayim. It's zocha. It's not the higadita, it's zocha. And then when he brings Kemo shenema zochar es yom HaShabbos. What is he bringing right for zochar es yom HaShabbos? It's another. Maybe you should remember Amalek, maybe Miriam. What's the zochar? What is he saying from Shabbos? We're going to have a very straight shot in a minute. And then he says, then the Rambam says, oh yeah, but there's another pasuk. U'minayin shebeleil chamisha asar Talmud Loma v'igad tilvincha bayamahu leimor ba'avur zeh b'shor sheishmatzu morar mnochim u'fonecha. So he brings the pasuk that we all know, and which Chazal darshan in the Gemara and in the Haggadah. V'igad tilvincha bayamahu leimor ba'avur zeh b'shor sheishmatzu morar mnochim u'fonecha. And when you have matzu morar, when is the mitzvah saseh of achilas matzu morar? Is Chamisha Asa. So therefore, Yigadata is b'shor that you have matzah mora munachim fanecha, and that's Chamisha Asa. So what was the need for the pasuk of Zocha as Hayom Asher Yitzasem Mitzrayim? It's shteitach. It says Yigadata levincha bayom ahu leima bavur zeh b'shor shei matzah mora. What did he need? What did the Rambam need? This new pasuk of Zocha as Hayom Asher Yitzasem Mitzrayim. First of all, does everyone hear me? Okay, good. It's much better because like this will be reverberating. It's no good. If you want, when my Rebbe gave a shiur, the way I'm speaking now is a whisper compared to the way he gave a shiur. You should know that. He was, as my children who hear tapes from he was drunk on Torah. He was mamish drunk. He took over his whole. He was on a psychedelic drug, that took him over. It's true. It's true. He used to have to, after a 3-hour shiur, 5 minutes you weren't allowed to go near him because you had to settle down. This was the biggest Musa Haskel that you could. This was after the shiur, that was a Musa Haskel. That was a tremendous shiur in Musa. The person completely gave him over. He gave himself over to learning Torah. So, getting back to this Rambam, what is the Rambam talking about? So I'll tell you. I don't think it's written any place. My Rebbe said this one line. He didn't elaborate on it. He said a Mesorah from his grandfather, Rabbi Chaim Brisker. The first part of the Rambam, when the Rambam says that mitzvah saseh shel Torah l'saper b'nisim v'niflos shenasu l'avoseinu b'Mitzrayim b'leil chamisha asa b'nisan. The Leil Chamisha Asa b'Nisan is not telling you when you should tell over the Nisim and the flow. The Nisim and flows. It's telling you the substance of what you should tell over. What should you tell over? Not the Esamakis, not the Maisa of Yeridel Mitzrayim, Yosef, and Echov, should tell over what happened on the night of Chamisha Asar, 3,300 years ago. So everyone is here. So the truth is that I'm going to prove it to you in the next 20 minutes. I'm going to prove it to you. This is what we do. And with this, you'll understand the whole Haggadah. Because you cannot understand the Haggadah. The Haggadah is a word here, and it's a word there. There was a very good Haggadah written a few years ago, the Chosen Nation Haggadah. I recommend it highly. I know the author. I know the Mechaber. And there's that's a good Haggadah to get. The Rambam here is saying, if you want to understand the Haggadah, if you want to know your chiyuv, what the Torah wanted from you, it wanted you to speak about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did in Mitzrayim, Leil Pesach, Leil Chamisha Asar in Mitzrayim 3,300 years ago. That night. Now I'm going to prove it to you. So you shouldn't think that either Reb Chaim didn't know what he was talking about, or my Rebbe misquoted it, or I'm quoting it incorrectly. We'll start off with just one idea in Halacha Daled. Of course, this is how he answers the why we need both psukim, because the first set of psukim are Zochar es Hayom Hazeh Asher Yitzasem Mitzrayim. What does that pasuk say? What do you remember? Es Hayom Hazeh. This day, that's what you remember. Asher Yitzasem Mitzrayim. Doesn't say, what is Sipur? Sipur you see is Mitzrayim. Where does it start? Where does it end? How do we know I'm Makayim? How do I know I'm Makayim the mitzvah? What is the text? What is the idea? What are the issues I'm supposed to cover? What's Sipur? Sipur about what? The Sipur is Es Hayom Hazeh Asher Yitzasem Mitzrayim. That day. That day means, of course, includes the Bik of the night, which I'll show you. And also, incidentally, the Minchas Chinuch, I was looking up, where does the Rambam have mitzvah zechira? Everyone knows the two mitzvahs d'oraisa, mitzvah zechira and mitzvah sipur. Mitzvah zechira is every day, right? Ad shedorsha ben zoma, that we know it's 2 times a day. Rabbi Avrohom Dov Kahn said Ad shedorsha ben zoma, that I have to do it 2 times a day, every day of the year. And then there's a mitzvah of sipur. Sipur is only 1 time a year. It's on the night, Pesach night. Right? So 2 separate mitzvahs. So I was looking in the Rambam Sefer Mitzvahs, couldn't find it. Started getting very anxious. Then Chinuch, couldn't find it. Only found Mitzvah Sipur, Mitzvah Haggadah. Couldn't find the Mitzvah of Zochar. Zechira. And guess what? I finally looked at the Minchas Chinuch, and he says, Adayin lo motzasi. He also says, I couldn't find it. I'm still looking. It's not there. You know why? I'm telling you, he doesn't have a teretz. I mean, he has a teretz. It's not. It's very clear according to the Rambam. There's no 2 mitzvahs. There's 1 mitzvah. There's 1 mitzvah. This I'm saying. It's a close from the Rambam like that. It's 1 mitzvah. There's a mitzvah zechira. However, on Shabbos, it's very interesting. On Shabbos, you have a mitzvah zechira also, right? Zochar, it's a deraisa. Zochar, right? Zochar Yom Shabbos Kadsho. What zechira do you have on Shabbos? Kiddush. You make Kiddush. Zachrei al yayin, you're Mekadesh Shabbos. Can you have Zachar, the mitzvah of Zachar, can you have it during the week? Do you have it during the week? So the Ramban says, very famous Ramban, the mitzvah Zachar you can have during the week also. When you say, Hayom Yom Rishon b'Shabbos, or you say, this Mona is l'Shabbos, I have the Gemara in Beitza, Beisham Beis Hillel, you say, this is for Shabbos. This, I found a delicacy. Oh, this salmon is phenomenal. I have to keep this for Shabbos. You find it on Monday, you find it on Tuesday. And you say, Harei Zeh Shabbos. You were Mekadesh Shabbos. You were Mekadesh Shabbos. This is a Zechira of Shabbos. Is the Zechira on the weekdays different than on Shabbos? Of course it is. The Zechira on Shabbos is when Mekadesh Shabbos alayayim. What's the Zechira during the week? You remember Shabbos, Harei Zeh Shabbos. You think about Shabbos in some form, but it's one mitzvah. It's one mitzvah. So here too, the Zechira is twofold. The Zechira is every single day. You're mechuyev twice a day to remember, and that's ba'ofan just as Zechira. You remember it, and then on the 15th at night, so that's Vigat Levincha. That's a separate, what Haggadah is, how it differs. Rabbi Chaim said, Pshat, but the Haggadah, it's clear that it's through Shaila. The Torah is clear. Yisholcha bin chamocha. It's derech Shaila and Tshuva. It's Harochas Dvarim. You're more lengthy about it. You engage with other people about it. But it's one mitzvah. That answers it's one mitzvah. So he says, how do you know? First I'm saying, this is the Rambam. It says, Zochar es hayom hazeh. He's telling you, the mitzvah say is to tell over the nisim and the flows that happened on the 15th. Because Zochar es hayom hazeh, this day. Remember this day, the 15th. Okay. Otherwise we don't know what the second part, Vigat Levincha, is. Now, in Halacha Dalet, we covered a lot of Yisodas so far. I have to prove, and what does it mean to remember? Because everyone's going to get very uptight. What do you mean? The Haggadah talks about other things. So I'm telling you, it's only what happened in the 15th at night. I know this. I'm going to explain it. It's 100% correct. So it says. Two things I'll read you from the Rambam that prove it, that this is what the Rambam says for sure. It says as follows. It says, V'im hoya, it is halacha beis, V'im hoya, haben godol v'chacham, V'im hoya, haben godol v'chacham, modio, you tell the ben, Mashiro lono b'mitzrayim, v'nisim shenasu lono ayidei Moshe Rabbeinu. If he was a chacham, if not, okay, you yotze, you're definitely a yotze. If he was a chacham, you tell him. Moshe, this is perfect, because now we understand why Moshe is not mentioned in the Haggadah. His name is mentioned once, parenthetically. Why? If it's telling over the Sipur, you can't tell the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim without mentioning Moshe Rabbeinu. You get an F in your report. You're saying a report, you have to give an oral testimony of what happened in Mitzrayim. You failed. You didn't mention Moshe. The Eved Hashem. It's ridiculous. No. On the 15th at night, Moshe had anything to do with what happened on the 15th at night? Ani v'lo malach, ani v'lo saraf, ani hu v'lo acher. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the chvod over atzmo. He did something, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did something on the 15th of night. We have to remember forever. That's what I'm going to tell you what that means tonight, today. Maybe that'll be the shmooze. That is the most important part. But I'll tell you that we have to hurry. Okay. You understand? This is sort of optional. Haya ben Chacham. Then you mention Moshe and Nisim Nasu Al Yada. But otherwise, no. So you obviously Yotze without that. So the mitzvah, the core mitzvah, is certainly not the Asamakis. And that's why we don't mention Moshe. Okay. Now, in Dalid, he says, "V'chein maskil u'modia shavodim ayun l'farim mitzrayim v'chol hara shigmalanu u'mesayim b'nisim v'niflo shenasu lanu u'v'chei huseinu v'hu sheyidrosh me'arami oved avi ad sheyigmar kol haparsha." He says the ikar of telling over the story, you have to read the whole halacha, but take my word, I have very little time. Halacha Daled, Perek Shvi Halacha Daled of Chometz Matzah. He says that the ikar is to darshan me'arami oved avi ad sheyigmar kol haparsha. You know how much we have? 4 psukim. 4 psukim that we darshan. I will go through the 4 psukim. And that's where we'll get what happened on the 15th. And the pasuk, the Lashon pasuk will be fabulous. I'll show you, and I'll show you many. I usually don't make these settlers, but I'll show you that the whole Torah, anytime it mentions Yetzias Mitzrayim, that's the Lashon it uses. I'll show you in a second. So v'chein v'hu sheyidrosh me'arami oved avi ad sheyigmar kol haparsha. There's 4 psukim in Bikurim. When we bring Bikurim, the 4 psukim that we say, and those are the ones we darshan when we want to be Yotzei our mitzvah of Haggadah on Leil Chamishasa. And he says, "V'chol hamosif u'marich b'drash parsha zo hareza mishubach." This is the most telling. The Rambam says, the Haggadah also, the Chazal, "V'chol hamarbe l'stape b'siyas Mitzrayim Harei zeh mishubach." Very famous, right? So the Rambam teaches. It doesn't mean l'sape b'tzias Mitzrayim without a understanding, without a focus. It means those 4 psukim of Arami Ovid Avi. That's what you have to. That's the kiyum of Harei zeh mishubach. V'cholamosif u'marich b'dvash parsha zo of Arami Ovi Ovi harei zeh mishubach. Okay, so what are the 4 psukim? Okay, so if we open up to Kisavo, so we have the 4 psukim. So the first pasuk is Arami Ovi Ovi. It starts with Niso v'martu fnei Hashem l'kecha Arami Ovi Ovi vayered Mitzrayima. It does give background, but you'll see in 1 second what we're getting to, what the psukim are getting to. The first thing is that you'd say we went down to Mitzrayim, and that second pasuk vayareos on our mitzvim. They were very bad to us. Vayanunu, they oppressed us. Vayitnu aleinu avodah kasha. And they made it very difficult for us. They gave us hard labor. So what did we do? 3rd pasuk. Vanitzak el Hashem elokei avoseinu. Vayishma Hashem oskoleinu vayaras onyenu v'esam aleinu v'eslachatzeinu. The 4th pasuk. The 4th pasuk is the key. So we're trying to darshan Yetzias Mitzrayim. Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. How does the Torah darshan Yetzias Mitzrayim? 4th pasuk, Vayotzienu. This is the Yetzias with Saper Yetzias Mitzrayim. What's Yetzias Mitzrayim? Let's see what the pasuk says. Vayotzienu Hashem Mitzrayim. How? Biyod Chazoko uv'zro netuya uv'mor gadol uv'osos uv'mofsim. Okay, everyone knows the Haggadah. Probably know it by heart better than me. That the Haggadah says that Vayotzienu Hashem Mitzrayim, no one else. What I just shouted out before, Ani v'lo Malach, Ani v'lo Sorof, Ani hu v'lo Acher. No one else. Then it says, Biyod Chazaka is Dever. So that Haggadah that I told you about, that I know the Mechaber, so he made a mistake when the translation, because at that time I didn't know what I know now, that Yod Chazaka, it says is Dever. So I said it means the Dever of the Makas. Makas Dever. Sheker v'chozov. Sheker v'chozov. You know, you have to know, Sheker v'chozov doesn't mean the Dever of the Makas. It says if it's Zoh in the Tuya. How do I know it doesn't mean the Dever of the Makas? What is the Chazal Darshan of Zoh in the Tuya? Cherev. There was a Makkah of Cherev. No one knows. There's not one mention of Cherev with regard to Mitzrayim. Nothing. Nothing to do with Cherev. There was no Cherev. It's not the Makkahs. Morah. What's the Morah God? Gili Shechina. Of course, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That night, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Nizgale. Ani hu v'lo acher. Uva Osos is the matas. I also thought the matah of Moshe, you know, that they used. It's a sheker. It's not that makkah. It's the mat, and mopsim is dam. So I said it's dam of the makkahs. It's incorrect. It's incorrect. I'll prove to you it's incorrect. I'll prove to you it's incorrect. All these are 5 makkahs that were part of makkahs Bechoros. Makkahs Bechoros had 5 components in it. One component was Dever. That's the first component. Next one was Cherev. Then Gili Shechina. Then Mata and Dam. Okay. So I told this over. This is my word. It's a beautiful word. You can't move from this word. I'll tell you why. I'll prove it to you now with a few rayas that you can't move from. But there's a machlokes in. You have to read the Haggadah. Now you can read the Haggadah. It says Dov Acher. Right after this drush of the 5, what I'm telling you, it says now go to Dov Acher. In all of Shas, when it says Dov Acher, what does it mean? There's a machlokes. There's another opinion. Dov Acher, right? Dov Acher. What's the Dov Acher? The Dov Acher is that shtayim, that it says Yod Chazaka shtayim. It's 2 words. Zoh in the Tuya, 2 words. Shtayim. Gilui Shechina, 2 words. It's shtayim. Then Osos is Loshen Rabin is shtayim. Mopsim is a Loshen Rabin shtayim. Eila Esamakos. That is a machlokes. There's a machlokes tanoim here. One mandiyama, the first mandiyama says that the only thing you have to be mesaper, vayotzienu Hashem Mitzrayim b'yod chazok. How is he telling? These are the nisim in the flotion. On the 15th at night, you have to tell over the story. So this first mandiyama says no, it's the 15th at night because you're only telling over the story that happened that night. So it means Makas Bechoros that had 5 components. Dover Acher, there's another mandiyama. And he shlogs and he says, no, it means Yasa Makos. The whole year of Makos that happened. Rabbi Yehuda Paskins like the first mandiyama. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? So every child, when he learns this in elementary school, so in Yeshiva Katana, what does he ask? You needed, you wouldn't say this to your Rebbe because you would be probably thrown out of the school. You needed the Tana of Yehuda to make an acronym, a Rashi Tevis. That's what he added. He made it. Rabbi Yehuda, the Malach Hashem Tzvah, he made a Rashi Tevis Gvaldi, and we quote that. We're so proud we can make a Rashi Tevis. What does it mean? He says, no. Of course I want to mention the Esamakos because the Esamakos is the Hishtaushlis, it's the background. You have to give some background. We do say that Avrohom Dov Kahn, etc. That's background. But when we're dashing this, which is the Ikar of Sipur, it has nothing to do. And I'm not going to mention the Makas by name because I passed it like the first mandiyama that it's talking about Cherev, Dever, and Cherev, Gili Shechina, and Mate, and Dam of Makas Bechoros alone, which happened on that night. So I only mention it B'Rashi Tevis. I'm not going to say, because if I say it aloud, then it seems that I'm passing like the second mandiyama that says it's the whole Esamakis. No, I don't want to do that. And then there's a big question. Where is this new idea that a makkah can have 5 makkahs? And that bothers the second mandiyama as well. That's a very big question to ask. You mechadish, the makkahs b'choros is 5 makkahs. I don't like it. So that's when the Haggadah brings in. Rav Yossi Aglili said that there were 50 makos alayom. There were 10 makos in Mitzrayim. But Rabbi Eliezer says that Eminayin Shekol Mako that was in Mitzrayim, every mako in Mitzrayim was what? Shel Abba makos. Oh, every makos. You're so nispoiled, you're so bothered that makas b'choros could be 5. You want to reject that the pasuk is talking about makas b'choros. Every mako is 4. And then Rabbi Kiva says, no, every mako is 5. Every mako is 5. You're so worried that you don't like that the sipur should be only on this night, that the pasuk means the Leil Chamisha Asar, that Yod Chazok is on the 2 Yod Gadol, Moses Mosif. It's not referring to his makas b'choros because it's split into 5. Every makkah is split into 5. So what are you so worried about? Okay, now I'll show you something which is to the non-believers still in this part. It's Rav Chaim. Rav Chaim didn't say anything. I just heard from the Rav what he said. This one claim of that Leil Chamishasa means the nisim and the flows that happened in Leil Chamishasa in Mitzrayim, in Yom, in Mitzrayim on Leil Chamishasa 3,300 years ago. That's what we tell over. Not that we should say it on Leil Chamishasa, because that's the Rambam proves right after that from Migad L'Lindcha Bavur Zeh. Okay, so I'm going to prove it to you. And I hope this is like one of the matanis that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the person, and I'm very thankful. Moshe Rabbeinu fought with HaKadosh Baruch Hu for 1 week. We have a Kabbalah. He did not want to be the leader of Klal Yisrael to take them out of Mitzrayim. He's unworthy. Aaron is greater. But don't take me. So HaKadosh Baruch says, no, you're going. Okay, he's going. He has to go back to his father-in-law, Yisro, and he tells Yisro, I have to go back. And to Mitzrayim. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears to Moshe after he tells Yisro, and he says another nevuah. Here's what he says: Vayom Hashem al Moshe, belechtecha lo shuv Mitzrayim. When you go back, re'ei kol hamovsim asher samti biyodecha v'asisam lifnei paro v'ani achazek es libo v'lo yishlach es ha'am v'amartel paro kol ama Hashem b'ni b'chorei Yisrael. The very beautiful B'ni B'chor Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch says B'ni B'chor Yisrael. V'omar elecha. And you, Moses, should say, I am telling you, Paro, Shalach es B'ni v'yavdeni v'atmoin l'shalcho. If you refuse to send out Klal Yisrael, Hinei anochi horeg es bincha b'chorecha. I'm going to kill your firstborn. Very clear. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him very clear instructions to the greatest Jew who ever lived, Moshe Rabbeinu. He gave him clear instructions, Hinei Anochi, to tell Paro, Hinei Anochi horeg es bincha b'chorecha. And Rashi has a whole thing that normally Melech Basav Adam doesn't give away all the secrets, because like the Manhattan Project, the A-bomb, we didn't want anyone to know, because we didn't want anyone to get the secret, because then they could defend themselves or try to have the A-bomb themselves or try to steal it. So no one went, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have to worry about anything. So he says, this is what's going to happen, Gendikt. Oh, Moshe comes to Paro. First he comes to Klal Yisrael, then he comes to Paro. Guess what? he doesn't tell Paro about Makas B'choros. He does say something else, but he doesn't say about anything about Makas B'choros. Moshe Rabbeinu, Eved Hashem, what's the pshat? So the answer is, let me first read you the pasuk. Vayomer Paro mi Hashem asher eshma b'kolo l'shalach es Yisrael lo yadati es Hashem v'gam es Yisrael lo ashaleach Vayomru Elohei ha'ivrim nikro oleinu neilcho no derech shloshis yomim b'midbar v'nizbecho l'Hashem Elokeinu pen yifgo'enu b'dever o b'chorev. He tells him pen yifgo'enu l'Hashem saginor kavod l'malchus. See Rashi there, but it means you don't want to send us out. You know what's going to happen to you? You're going to suffer dever and cherev. That's what you're going to suffer. So he doesn't tell him anything about Makas B'choros. He tells him about this dever and cherev. HaKadosh Baruch Hu never told him anyone. Anyone have a teretz? Do you recall the 5 Lishonos? What are the first 2 Lishonos? The first 2 Lishonos of Makas B'choros, according to the first man Yoma. Yod Chazoko, Zo Hadeber, Zo Enetuya is Cherev. He's telling him that Pen Yifgo'enu Badeber o Bacherev. He broke it down. He broke, as you see Rashi there by Horeges Mincha B'chorecha. Hakadosh Baruch Hu says, tell him the worst thing. So Moshe, the Eved that he was, he broke it down for Paro. The terrible things that are going to happen. Each Bechor is going to suffer 5 deaths. In other words, he's going to be afflicted till he dies with 5 Yisurim. So the first 2 he told him, and probably more, but it means he started off with those 2. It doesn't have to be Keruchla, you know. So it means it's telling this is Makas B'choros. Nicht schlecht. That was a matana that I got. I woke up one morning and the psukim were there. They were always there, but they put it in my head. This is unbelievable. This already, I told over to big people, this is amazing. Because otherwise we don't understand. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu of course told Moshe, and Moshe of course did what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him. And where was Makas B'choros? It's Dever and Cherev. Dever and Cherev. And that's the first 2 of the Yod Chazaka and Zro and Netuya. Every time it mentions Yetzias Mitzrayim, by the way, in the Torah, it says Yod Chazaka. What's that? Yod Chazaka. This Melitza. No, it means HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I took you out with Makas B'choros. Now, Rabbi Finkelman is here, so I have to make it a Musa Shmuz. I have to give you Yotzei, you know. So no, but it is a Musa Shmuz. I'll tell you why. What's the pshat that you only tell over what happened, Makas B'choros? So it has to have a tam, has to have a nefesh, excuse me, in the shama. What is the pshat? Pshat is pashut. What is Makas B'choros? So there's a pasuk. There's a very clear pasuk. Oh yes, I have to tell you this. It's a lust that I have. I cannot, even though it's late already. I'll tell you another proof, just very, very fast. It says, "Mamim hayisim im Hashem yom tati eschem." Moshe is giving Musar in Akev to Klal Yisrael. He's giving Musar. All the things you did bad. So, Mamrim hayisim, you were rebellious im Hashem yom tati eschem. Vo esnapa lifnei Hashem. Eis harboyim hayom, veis harboyim halayla. I prostrated myself before HaKadosh Baruch Hu 40 days and 40 nights. He wanted to destroy you. I had to pray just that he shouldn't destroy you for 40 days and 40 nights. Hashem Elokim, al tashes amcha v'nachloscha asher padisa b'godlecha, that you redeemed with your greatness. Asher hotzeisa mimitzrayim biyod chazaka, that you took out dvarim tes chovov, that you took out of Mitzrayim with Yod Chazaka. So I want to ask you like this. I want to ask you about the Bata Kasha. You know, as I get upset with my children. Right? They did something they shouldn't have done. So, someone will come over and say, what are you so upset? You did so much for them. You did so much for them. So now you're upset at them? It's a counter-argument. It's not an argument, just the opposite. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out beyond Chazaka, so then what? He should be more upset with us. He did us all these great tovos. He took us out with a great hand, and then we were rebelling against him. A chutzpah. It makes our Averum so much greater, our rebellion so much greater. So what is Moshe trying to? David HaKadosh Baruch Hu, have compassion on Klal Yisrael, because you took them out of Mitzrayim beyond Chazaka. It's a very good kasha. It's a very good kasha. It makes no sense. So what's the answer? The answer is partial. The answer is because what is the meaning of Makas Bechoros? I don't mean killing the firstborn. What did it accomplish? HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us. O Hanisa Elokim Lokachas Lo Goy Mikerev Goy. And there it also says Biyod Chazaka, that pasuk, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for you in Mitzrayim. What does it mean? Hanisa Elokim Lokachas Lo Goy Mikerev Goy. Did it ever happen that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took a nation from another nation? It means HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us for His nation on Leil Tesvav B'Nisan. That's what happened. Of course, chosen for what? For Kabbalah Satorah and doing all the mitzvahs. Of course. But when was it you are B'nai B'chori Yisrael? When was that? You are my nation. You're my child. That was on the 15th. You're special to me from all the nations of the world. That happened on Leil Tesvav. That's what we're supposed to say. This tremendous tova, we have to give you HaKadosh HaTova, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You took us to be your child, your special child, from everyone else. You could pick anyone. You picked us. That's something to think about. That's something to speak about. That also Samovsim of that night when HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us by Himself, and that's why you had to be only Lo Yadei Malach, Lo Yadei Shaliach. You know why? Because when you pick, it's only your pick if you pick. If you tell someone else to do it, then that someone else is doing it, not you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvodo v'atzmo came down, chose us to be His nation. What a thought! What a thought! That we have to constantly remember. And that's the Yad Chazaka. The Yad Chazaka doesn't mean with a strong hand the way, well, of course it means with a strong hand, for the way Chazal mean, but it doesn't mean that he means he chose us to be His children. That's what Moshe says. You chose us to be your children. Your children, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how could you kill your child? It means you chose us to be your children. It's a tipa min hayam. I gave you the basics. It is emes lamito. Go through Rambam. Anyone who would like to contact me to talk to me about it, I love to talk to you. And you should all have a chag kosher v'someach. We should continue to be the children, the beloved children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and meet Mashiach. We'll be able to bring the Pesach Hilchosa in Yerushalayim.